Gateway morning, everyone, and welcome back to Billing Insights, your favorite podcast for medical billing. If this is your first time watching, my name is Taylor,
And I'm Anita.
and today we're going to be talking about vaccine billing, a complex but highly profitable area that many billers and practices overlook. Are you billing correctly for child and adult vaccines? Could you be missing out on reimbursements?
Could be.
Let's talk about that.
So, billing for vaccines isn't just as simple as submitting your CPT code and getting reimbursed. There are a lot of things that you need to know in advance. So, there are different administration fee codes. There are different multi dose schedules for your vaccines, maybe at 3 and 6 and 9 months old, and lots of things that could trip you up. One of the things you have to be aware of is, do you need a different refrigerator for your different types of vaccines versus commercial versus Medicaid and things like that? So there's a lot of things to be aware of, and you don't want to be charged possibly with fraud or abuse or something like that. So some things to talk about.
Exactly. And if you're not billing correctly, you could be undercharging or even facing claim denials, which means lost revenue for your practice.
And your provider will not be happy with you if you're losing them revenue.
Right.
So some of the big mistakes that we see, not using the correct vaccine administration code. They're different for different populations, Medicaid versus Medicare versus commercial. Missing out on separate reimbursement. Remember, you want to charge appropriately and maximize your revenue, but you don't want to overcharge and get paid for something that you didn't do either. Ignoring payer-specific rules. There's different rules for Blue Cross versus Cigna versus Meritain, different things like that. And then failing to track your vaccine inventory properly. That's going back to that refrigerator thing that we were talking about earlier. So let's talk about vaccine for kids.
Okay. So, VFC or vaccines for children, that is the program that Medicaids have where providers get the vaccines for free because normally providers have to purchase the commercial or private vaccines that they're using, and that costs a lot of money, which is why providers get upset when they don't get reimbursed for the vaccines. But the VFC program, you bill the vaccine out. It does not get reimbursed. And then the administration codes are what you do get the reimbursement for. So the pamphlets that they hand out to the parents, kind of discussing why you need the vaccine, what the side effects could be, things like that. That is what you get reimbursed for. So
One of the things, whenever you're billing for Medicaid, making sure that you track that NDC code, because the NDC code will tell them which manufacturer that medication was, I guess, received from. And one of the other things that you have to watch for is your lot number and putting on your documentation, because we're now in this value-based care. Your documentation has to show where that vaccine was given. Did they give it in the arm? Did they give it in the hip, the leg, and that? And then when you're looking at those NDC codes, they do change every time you get a new shipment. So you have to update those NDC codes periodically to make sure that you're not expired and that it's trackable.
So when flu season comes around, make sure you're emailing your providers and asking them for updated NDCs.
It's very important.
Honestly, you should just have something set up with them where they just automatically, when they get new shipments, send it to you. But providers are very busy. We understand. So we put forth the effort to reach out to them and ask for the updated NDCs. So how do you bill for vaccines?
Yes.
It's a very complicated question because there are so many special circumstances. So let's start with vaccines for children, and I don't mean the program, but actual just
Pediatrics.
the pediatric vaccines. So take the MMR vaccine, for example, 90707, that has measles, mumps, and rubella. For children, when you're doing the administration codes, you want to focus on how many components are in each vaccine. And by components, how many different viruses are in the vaccine or strains. What are you treating for?
Right.
What are you
Measles,
preventing?
mumps, and rubella.
So
Yeah,
that
so
has
that's
three
three.
components. So you would bill your 90707 one unit. You never want to change the units for the
Mhm.
vaccine. Then you would bill a 90460 because again, it's the pediatrics. And this is only if it's intramuscularly, or actually 90460 and 461 are for any route. But when you get to adults, you want to know if it's oral or intramuscular, etc. So you would do your 90460 at 1 unit. It's always going to be 1 unit, except we'll get to that later.
Lots of exceptions here.
And then your 90461 would have the remaining components. So what is 3 minus 1? 2. So you have 2 components in your 90461. So where am I going with this?
So that's how you would do a pediatric Medicaid vaccine. Remember that your diagnosis codes have to be matching for this as well. And some of your insurances want you to put your diagnosis codes not just Z23. Maybe some of them want the well child code with that as well. So it again gets a little complicated, but we're now going to the commercial. How do the commercial carriers want you to do it?
So the commercial carriers, because with the Medicaid one, you would always do your vaccines and then your admins, your vaccine and then admin, and it
So
just
on.
keeps going for each vaccine. Some commercial carriers, Blue Cross being the main one, want you to do all of your vaccines at the top, which is similar to how the adults do it, which we'll also get to in a moment. And then they do the 90460 and the 90461 line, multiple units at the bottom. So this is where the exception comes in for 90460 when it won't just be 1 unit. So you could think of it as if you're writing it out with the vaccines, admins, but I'm losing my train of thought. Anyways, if you wrote it out all broken up, you could see that you have multiple 90460s. Count them all up. You're going to have your units be equal to how many vaccines there are. So if you gave 5 vaccines, you'll now have 5 units of 90460 totaled up at the bottom instead of having it separate for each vaccine. Then you have your 90461 is still going to be all of the remaining components. So say you had a 90696, which has 4 components, and a 90710, which has 4 components. You would do underneath that 90460 2 units, and then 90461 6 units. So your remaining 3 from both vaccines is totaled to make the 6, and then 1 from both vaccines to make the 2 for the 90460. So if you have it for adults, you would do your vaccine, and then instead of thinking about the number of components, you go by the number of vaccines given, or the number of sticks, the number of pokes, however you want to think of it, but you would do it the way that you would bill for Blue Cross for children, where you total all of your vaccines, and then underneath that, you would have a 90471. Again, this is intramuscularly. Last time it was any route, but now we're intramuscular for a 90471 because that's the most common route of administration. And then 90472 would be all of the remaining sticks. So if you have 5 vaccines, you would have a 90471 with 1 unit, and then a 90472 with 4 units. So it's a lot more straightforward for adults. Now for oral, you have the 90473, the 474.
And to make it even more fun, whenever you have various Medicaids in various states, they have their own rules, and they're all different. For instance, there's Illinois Medicaid that wants an SL modifier, or I'm sorry, that's Missouri. That's Missouri. That wants an SL modifier, which shows that it's a vaccine for kid on the CPT code for the vaccine. And explain about Illinois then, Medicaid.
Illinois Medicaid, you typically don't do the administration codes.
It's just the vaccine, but they don't reimburse for the vaccine. What they actually do is reimburse for the admin fee on the vaccine CPT code, which gets even more confusing, but that's how they do it. So
right. And then here's another added layer. So you have your private vaccine fridge and you have your Medicaid vaccine fridge. So The private ones are the ones that the doctor pays for. The Medicaid ones are the ones they get for free. But say you have a patient who came in and got a commercial vaccine that the doctor just paid $300 for that vaccine. They want to get reimbursed more than $300, but the patient's commercial insurance actually termed a month ago. What do you do in that situation?
That's a real pickle because your office manager is probably running around in a panic right now, going, my doctor is not going to get reimbursed because Medicaid won't pay that we gave them a vaccine that's not a Medicaid vaccine. It's actually our commercial vaccine that we paid for. However, you are in luck. There is something that you can do.
Right. So there is paperwork that you can fill out to get your VFC vaccine switched with a private vaccine. That way the patient can just pay your self-pay rate. So it's just a lot of administrative stuff that your office manager would be filling out, and they send it to the state and get approval to switch the two vaccines.
Right, and they just do a complete and total swap out so that Medicaid would then cover for the vaccine and the patient is not on the hook for $350.
Right. So there are so many more special exceptions. It would be a very long video if we wanted to teach you all of the ins and outs of how to bill for vaccines. We also don't know what state all of our viewers are in, or what kind of vaccines you have questions about. Is it all oral?
Right, and we didn't even get into the difference with Medicare vaccines because they don't even use the CPT codes for admin at all. They use HCPCS.
Right. So an example would be G0008 is the administration code for the flu vaccine. And then there's G0009 for
the pneumonia.
Yes. And so on and so forth. You have to have a special, like an actual reason for a tetanus shot. You can't just have the Z23 for encounter-free immunization. If this all sounds overwhelming,
it can be.
Don't worry. Our full class on vaccine medical billing covers everything you need to know, from proper coding to maximizing reimbursements and avoiding costly mistakes. And we want to be so thorough that the class isn't even out yet. But
it is coming.
If you keep your eyes peeled, it will be posted on gmslearningacademy.com. That is G as in golf, M as in Mike, S as in Sierra, learningacademy.com. Navigate to the courses tab in the top right corner, and you can scroll down and look through all of our available courses. We have stuff for HIPAA and PCI, the payment card industry data security standards. We have them for
pain management, documentation, and coding and billing. We've also got neonatology on there.
We've got how to launch and manage your private medical practice, how to do the same thing, but for a medical billing company. We have telephone etiquette if your staff needs training on how to sound professional on the phone. We have
fraud and abuse.
We have a certified professional billing course that's going to go up. I'm working on emergency action plans for fire, tornado, flood, and that is more gateway specific.
Right.
However, it gives you everything you need to know. Your staff could watch that, and then you could just show them your own, what do you call that? Your floor plan with this is where your emergency exit is. You could show them that after they do the
right. And there are required yearly courses for things like HIPAA and compliance, things like medical necessity, OSHA, electrical safety. All of these classes are there.
Sexual harassment.
And again, these are required classes that you have to have for your staff once a year. And they're all in one place. It's easy. You can send your staff to it, have them take the class. It gets you a certificate. And then they've got proof that they've taken the class for another whole year. So
if you have any questions, comments, or concerns about vaccine billing, you can leave them in the comment section below. But thank you guys so much for watching. We really appreciate your support. Hi, doctors. We got your emails. We know you're watching.
We appreciate you.
But since we're addressing you specifically, please remember to like, comment, subscribe, share, as well as hit that notification bell so you can be notified every time that we upload a new video. And without further ado, we'll see you in the next video. Bye!